What up, guys? Welcome to edmtuts.com. As always, you'll be able to buy this whole live set for $1.99 on our website, edmtuts.com, or on Sellfy. Both those links will be in the description. Anyways, today we're going to be learning how to make those big future bass slash trap chord stacks. Slushii's using a Marshmallow, Boombox Cartel, San Holo, guys like that. Just really big chord stacks, lots of reverb, very bright. So anyways, let's get started. Basically, the sound design is very simple. It's just saw waves. That's all it is. And you just have a bunch of different tracks. Some of them are detuned. Some of them are in mono. Some of them are pitched up, pitched down, and then you want a sub layer. So let's take a listen to each individual track just so you can get an idea what each individual layer sounds like, and then we'll open up a new set and try to recreate it. That's just a slightly detuned mid layer. And then that's a much more detuned mid layer. And then that's a pretty detuned kind of mid to high layer. I think it's pitched up a little bit. A less detuned pitch down layer. And that's just a saw wave. I believe it's on mono with some white noise. A high layer. And that is a very high layer, and most of it is just noise. This is an 808. Alright, so I'll open up the first serum patch just to show you basically just two saw waves. This one's a little bit detuned. There's some hyper, some reverb, and an OTT compressor, multiband compressor. And this is pretty much what all of the serum patches look like for all the layers, but some of them are much more detuned with many more voices. Some of them are pitched up a couple octaves, and some of them have more hyper and more dimension, stuff like that, but it's basically just saw waves. So one of the most important things is the group processing in this live set, and let's take a listen to what it sounds like with it and then without, with processing chain. This is without. So as you can see, it does a lot to the sound. It really brightens it up, really makes it sound much more full. And basically what I'm doing is all of these individual tracks are pretty much just the serum patch. I think a few of them might have some EQ stuff. Yeah, this one is centered a little bit more, and it has a slight mid boost. But for the most part, it's basically just the serum patch on all of them. And then I process them all together as a group to kind of glue them all together. So the first thing is an EQ. I'm just cutting the sub so I can leave space for the actual sub, the actual 808. And then I boost the highs a little bit. So I will mute all of these. So you can hear that even just the EQ alone changes the sound a lot. So here's without. So I'm basically just cutting the mids a tiny bit and boosting the highs quite a bit, and then also leaving space for the 808. Next thing I do is add some sidechain. which isn't going to change the sound at all, but that's just leaving space for the kick and the snare, which is really important. The next thing is a multiband compressor. And that changes the sound a lot as well. That really brightens it up and makes it sound much more loud. Basically, I'm just adding some input gain on both, a little bit of output gain on the high. The low band doesn't really matter too much because we're cutting out most of it with the EQ anyways, so you don't really have to worry about that. But the real trick is I kind of just find a spot that sounds nice with the threshold, and then on the high band I'm using a technique called expansion. So when the sound reaches a certain threshold, it will become louder, so it's expanding the sound. And on the mid band I'm using just classic compression, so when it hits a certain threshold it will become quieter. Okay, so I'm basically boosting the highs with the multiband dynamics and compressing the mids, so it makes it sound brighter. And last thing I'm doing is adding some saturation. I put it on soft sine, and I took the drive down just a little bit and put soft clip on because it was getting a little too loud. And I prefer to use saturators as limiters a lot of the times because it adds a little bit of coloring to the sound. So when you have soft clip on, it's basically like a limiter, but instead of just being a brick wall, it will actually round out the waveform, so it will distort it basically, which just adds a little bit of color to the sound. So the next thing we're going to do is get some chords. Now, writing your own chords is important, but for this tutorial we're mainly focusing on the sound design aspect of it, so I'm just going to drag in some pre-made MIDI chords. Alright, so this is what the chords sound like just with a default serum patch. So basically what we're going to do is let's detune this a little bit, add a couple of voices. Level down a little bit. Add some dimension expander. I'm going to add some multiband compression. And that'll be it for that layer. Then we're going to duplicate it. Let's hit Control A if you're on Mac and shift up to pitch up 1 octave. And let's make this one really detuned. 12 voices. Alright, let's listen to both those together. And let's duplicate this again. I'm going to pitch this one up another octave. And I'm going to add some noise to this layer. EQ EQ out most of the lows in this one. I want this one to be mostly noise. And let's get a little bit of movement on this. So I'm going to the matrix, modulate the amp by LFO1. That's what it sounds like so far. Alright, now onto the group processing. Let's cut out the lows, cut out a little bit of the mids around 500, just a little bit, and let's boost some highs. And we're going to cut out the very, very highs, about 15, 15.5, about 16, somewhere around there. Alright, add a little bit of multiband compression. So when you're playing around with the multiband compressor, just drag around the threshold for both bands, and you can kind of hear how it's affecting the sound. So if I compress the mid too much, it sounds like it's too bright, it's just too much high. And if I don't compress it enough, it sounds overpowering in the mid-range. So you want to find the sweet spot. Get somewhere around there. Let's add some reverb. Cut the lows. And now let's add a bass layer. I'm going to drag that to its own channel so it's not being affected by the group processing. And what I'm going to do is cut So that's kind of a basic rundown of what you would do. On the last track, I think I made 2 mid layers, one that was really detuned, one that wasn't, and I did the same thing with the highs. Here I'm just using 3 just to give you a quick idea, but in general you'd want to duplicate them more. Maybe put some more on the left channel, some more on the right channel, some panning, stuff like that. Alright guys, so that's about it. Hopefully you learned something from that. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Comment any suggestions, any feedback on the tutorials. Comment any sound design requests. I can do anything from dubstep, trap, future bass, any specific bass recreations, anything like that. Alright, thanks.